I'm here talking to you again today, and today we are going to be talking about gloves and how to make lovely fingers. So I love doing gloves. I haven't done a ton of them, but this time when I did my gloves, I thought I would really try to challenge myself and see how I can make the pickup stitches in between my fingers very smooth and not bulky. Because if you've ever tried to make gloves and you use worsted weight yarn, it can be very bulky in between your fingers. And if it's too bulky in between your fingers, you don't want to wear your gloves. That's no good. So here I am, I'm doing a ton of research to try and figure out how to make these joins in between the fingers and have it as minimal going back and weaving in ends. I don't want to have to close up holes. I just want it to be nice. So when you make gloves, if you've never made gloves before, there's one side that always turns out a little bit better than the other. And I'm not sure exactly why that happens. I just know that it does happen. One side always looks a little prettier than the other. But I have found that if I make gloves with a darker colored yarn, you don't see, it's very forgiving of anything. And I'll show you how I worked on my fingers and made it really nice. So as we're going along, don't forget to let us know where you're from, maybe what projects you're working on while you're stuck in the house and stuck at home for a while here, while we all try to get rid of this COVID. By the way, for all of you out there that are on the front lines, taking care of patients, taking care of maybe anything, working in the hospital, I just want to thank all of you out there that are doing that. As you know, many of you know that I'm a nurse as well, and I retired quite a while ago when our children were little, right, Jim? Yep. Because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and I was so fortunate to be able to do that. But I know how hard those nurses work. And I just remember from when I was a little kid, my first job out of, while I first started going to college, shall I say, was working in a nursing home. And that's what made me decide to become a nurse, because I loved working with patients. And I loved the elderly patients, right, Jim? Because I remember way back when I could bring my kitty cat in there and I would play card games with them. And it was just a really great experience for me. And that's why I became a nurse. But I know that those nurses are working so hard and they're exposing themselves to, life-threatening disease. And so I just wanted to thank everyone out there, as well as the police officers, even the mail people who are delivering the mail to us, and the people who are delivering food. They're all at a higher risk of getting this disease. And I just want to thank everyone out there who's working so hard to make sure that we can still be safe at home and be fed and have our mail sent to us and all that. So anyways, if you guys get a chance and you're able to thank those people, don't forget to thank them, because they really, really have their heart in it, and they're putting a lot on the line. And so, anyways, back to what we were working on. So as we're going along, every week we have a prize, right? So this last week we had a prize for ChowGoo needles, and our number 8 32-inch were the prize. And I don't know any of you have tried these ChowGoo needles, but they have no memory in the cords. So what I mean by that is the cord doesn't kink. So if you look at my cord here, do you see how it stays fairly flat like this? And this one's been used and used and used, and it still is pretty darn straight. And what I love about these also is they have a nice lace tip that is really good for working lace projects or just regular knitting. I find them to be really nice. And I love working with metal because I like to knit fast. So anyways, today we're going to be going over a few things. We're going to be talking about our gloves, and right in between each of the gloves, you have to pick up some stitches. And I just wanted to talk to you about how we might go about doing that. So, and then we also have this upcoming Odyssey Shawl. And this is a picture of the Odyssey Shawl. And this is an Odyssey Shawl in different colors. And it's using Dos Tiros. And what Dos Tiros is a hand-painted yarn that is, it's like a sport or DK, Jim.
From Malabrigo, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure if they actually think of it as a sport or DK. You could probably knit it as both. But it has great colorways, and it's 50% baby alpaca and 50% wool. So it's great hand-painted yarn. I love Malabrigo, and the reason why I love Malabrigo so much is that Malabrigo is very cost-effective for what it is. It's great quality and a great hand dye. They do a good job. And so that's a picture of, this is by Hohi Locatelli, and that is her picture. And we can find it on our blog, right, Jim?
Right.
Yeah, so take a look at it there. And the one that I'm going to be doing is the one that was, this is their signature colorways for the shawl. And if you look at them, the blue color is Alice. The peachy color or adobe color is Neverland. And then this other one is Fairy Tale. It's called Fairy Tale. And we have that on Alpaca Direct for sale, as well as these other colorways. And this one that Tara did, she works here at Alpaca Direct, and it's this shawl here, and it's done with teal feather being the first one. And then this Dos Tiras, let's see what color that one is. We have a few different colorways. That is Piedras. This one here is Piedras, and then Papyrus. So those are a great color selections, I think, too. And it looks like a great knit. I think the big thing about this, and we're going to be talking about this at length next week, we're going to be talking about gauge and how to make sure that your project turns out the way you want it to, as well as you don't want to run out of yarn. So maybe some different ideas for that, because you do not want that to happen. Now, today, our prize is going to be one of two things. It's Dos Tiras in two different colorways. And this first colorway is Diana, which is the multicolor. And then this other colorway is Papyrus. And you guys choose. How you get entered to win the prizes every week is you post comments in the comment section, and you let us know what you're working on. That's the part I love, because I love hearing from you guys, and you guys tell me about all the projects you're working on. And don't forget to give us the name of the pattern, because I love getting ideas from you. I have gotten many Technique Tuesdays, the ideas for my Technique Tuesdays from you guys, from these fabulous knitters that give me great ideas. Don't forget to let me know where you're from, and yeah, and post comments, and then you'll be entered to win.
I think there's a comment here from Kay. So thanks for doing this every Tuesday.
Yay! Oh, it's my pleasure. I love helping people learn to grow. I remember even when we had the ranch, I remember one time I was over with my daughter, and we were at TJ Maxx shopping, and we had horses when we had the ranch. And one of the ladies at the cashiers at the register, she was helping us, and she said, "Oh, I would love to learn how to ride a horse." Of course, you know me. I said, "Oh, well, you can come out to the ranch." My daughter's kicking me, yeah, because she's going, "Mom, what are you volunteering us for?" Anyways, it was a wonderful lady. She brought her daughter out to the ranch, and she had a fabulous time riding the horse. And so that is right up my alley. I've done that my whole life. And so doing this is just an extension of who I am. So it's great fun for me, and trying to help you learn. And I love trying to get people to reach, maybe do even a little bit more than you thought you could, you know, and you get so proud of yourself. And when the light bulb goes on and you get a skill or a technique and you figure it out, and it's so much fun when you realize, I got it. I don't know why it was so hard before, but I understood it. And so that's what I get out of it. It's fantastic for me. So now let's just take a look at different things. So when I'm talking about the picking up stitches for my fingers, it's very much the same skill as you might if you're doing picking up the stitches along the edge of a shawl. And not every pickup is the same. Sometimes you have to do different things. So along here, you can see I had to pick up a ton of stitches on this project. If any of you knit this project, it was in our Knit Club kit, and it's called the Sea Breeze Shawl, and this is the back side that we're looking at. If you look all along here, I had to pick up stitches all along here. And so what I like to do in a situation like this, when it's very close, sometimes I might use a smaller needle for the pickup, because if I'm only picking up one strand of yarn, it could get very sloppy looking, almost leave holes. Have you ever seen that before? Hey, have any of you out there done this before and had it leaves holes where you're picking up one strand of yarn and it leaves holes? Well, the solution for me is use a smaller needle for the pickup. And you could see that it didn't change the size of it. It didn't change it at all. But what it did do, if you look from the front, it made for a very clean pickup. Isn't that cool? It's so much fun. That's why I'm saying the details are what matter when you're knitting and you're learning how to knit. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that, because picking up stitches, whether you're doing it along the edge of the shawl, or maybe you're going to do the mattress stitch, right? And I have this other Knit Club project.
This was last month, right?
Yes. And this is a mattress stitch that I did. So if you look at it from the one side, here it is. Right. Do you see that? That's the mattress stitch gone all the way up. Now let's turn it the other way and take a look at it. And my goal when I'm trying to pick up stitches is to make it as flat as, I don't want a huge ridge on the inside of my work. Do you see how that's not a huge ridge? And if you feel really close, see, look. Do you see how flat that is? If you do your mattress stitch and you roll your project all the way to the edge and then you do your pickup, you get a very flat seam. And plus, it doesn't take a whole lot of fabric. Sometimes if you pick up too much on both sides, you get this. If you pick up too much on this side and too much on that side, then what you get is this almost like a rolled edge going all the way up the seam. You don't want that, because what it does is when you bunch it together like this, it'll be a big bulky bunch of fabric, and you don't want that. So anyways, that is the same. These are all kind of the same skill. So let's take a look with our working yarn here. So we have our little gloves here. And I want to go over a couple things right here. I have this little tiny swatch. And do you see that right there, how even that is? Now watch.
What are you showing here?
This is just picking up stitches. So when I picked, and it all is in the details. So when I'm trying to pick up stitch, and I'm going to pick up a stitch where I have knit stitches, and what I'm talking about knit stitches is this horseshoe-like loop. See that horseshoe-like loop right there that I'm identifying right here? Do you see this? So when I do my pickup stitches, I want my new stitch coming out of one of those horseshoes. So you see that that stitch comes out of this horseshoe, that set of horseshoes, and this stitch is coming out of this set of horseshoes, and that one, that set of horseshoes is coming right out of there. Do you see how those stitches line up? That would be a very good looking pickup. So let's take a look and see how I did that. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. Okay, so I could, do you see how it's really thin right there? I could possibly find one of those horseshoes, which is right here, and pick it up right here. But do you see 1, 2, 3 strands of yarn? And then we'll see what it looks like. So that one goes like that, and it's the same horseshoes that I was using before. But look at the ridge on the back. Instead of having a very flat ridge, I have a very thick ridge. That is not cool. So let's take it out again and look. So now I am looking at these horseshoes right here. See this one right here? That's a horseshoe right there that I want. So what I did is I took this strand right here, this strand right here, and pull that tight and come out from underneath it there. Now look at it. See how little that is? Let me show you that one more time. Here's another strand horseshoe. There's the horseshoe right there. So watch. I'm going to take that strand right there and this strand right here and grab that and come out from underneath. So now you see that it is very flat right here. Okay, let me show you one more time. Horseshoe, there's a horseshoe, strand, strand, wrap the yarn around, come out from underneath both strands of those, and voila. And if you see, after I knit a few rows up, these horseshoes are going to go straight into there. So if this was made in blue yarn, you would have a perfect pickup that's very flat on the back. That's also a sturdy pickup because it has 2 strands of yarn, but it's very flat. And it does not look like, if I had done the standard pickup that a lot of people do, like find your horseshoe and go underneath all those strands, you would see that this is much thicker and it doesn't look as good. So give that a try and see if that works for you. Now, we'll look here on our project here, and of course, my number 5 needles are somewhere else. Okay, so I don't have my small needles with me. So let's just take a look and see what I would pick up here. So now you have your thumbs, and I always look at it upside down. And what I'm looking for is this right here is going to be 1 stitch that I pick up. And then I would most likely come over and pick that up right there. And I might go like this, this. Where's my strand of yarn? And mind you, the needles that I'm using right now are much bigger than what I knit with, so I cannot keep this on here because it will just make a mess. There. Let's take a look at this. Do you see how I have a horseshoe? And right coming out of it is my new stitch. Okay, now let's see if I can make, right here is a stitch, and you want to have 2. So I would go underneath that one and that, oops, underneath these 2, like that. Because what I'm trying to do is get underneath 2 strands of yarn and make your stitch come straight out of there. And don't be afraid when you're doing these pickups to use a smaller needle, and then when you come back around, knit off of it with a larger needle. Or you can just knit tightly too. But making sure that you have your stitches oriented so that when you knit up that side, it's going to be a continuous stretch of stitches that are all oriented in the same direction. And that's what makes them look really good when you finish it off with minimal work. So keep that in mind when you're doing your stitches. And in here, you also, when you're weaving in the ends, you've got to be very careful about creating too much bulk. And I used to do the duplicate stitch when I did it, but now I don't do that. Let's see if I can show you what I might do. So that, say that you're knitting, let's just knit just a little bit right here. Okay, say that I want to tighten up these 2 edges. Oop. Okay. Say I want to tighten up these 2 stitches. I would go, I would take my working yarn and thread it in through these 2 and come back through the purl bumps. Instead of doing duplicate stitch where I would actually recreate the stitch, I would make purl bump strands. See how between the knit stitches there's those strands? I would pull them tight that way instead of trying to do duplicate stitch, because what duplicate stitch does is recreates an actual another stitch on top of the other stitch, which makes it double thick and can make it too thick in between your fingers. So again, when you're picking up your stitches, don't forget that those horseshoes, if you pick them up so that you have the horseshoes oriented as in right here, and I would pick that one up right here, then when you start knitting your fingers going up, those stitches are going to be going in the direction that you want them to be able to knit them. Oh, also we had a I wanted to show you one thing here with this. Sorry, Jim. I want to, when people are doing the mattress stitch, or you have to pick up stitches on the edge, don't forget to roll that fabric. For instance, see how this is a knit edge? You need to roll it all the way to the back. So when I'm doing pickups, stitches along a seam here like this, I would take my working yarn and go through the whole stitch, but do it on the very edge. Because I think a lot of people, when they see right here, all the way almost on the back, you need to be looking for that. And that is what makes a really nice flat seam. If some people will look at their edge and they'll start picking up stitches right here, maybe. But then it adds to the bulk, if you can see back here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is where it was picked up on the, and you need to make sure that your horseshoes are never, sometimes people, when they pick up stitches, they'll pick up 3 or 4 that are perfect, and then they will go through and pick it up in the wrong spot. And do you see how this is uninterrupted stitches? Oh, interrupted stitches. So make sure that you're not doing that when you're doing your projects, your pickup of your stitches. And you can always take your middle finger and your thumb and just roll that fabric forward towards you so you can see the very edge, and then get right at the very edge stitch. And always make sure that your stitches, your pickup is uninterrupted. You'll see when it looks smoother, it doesn't, because I'll show you in just 1 second here what you'll see. So if I look here, do you see all along here? These are knit stitches. Do you see how they're uninterrupted? That's how you want to pick up your stitches. Whether it's doing 1 bar for a mattress seam, or doing for the insides of your fingers on gloves, or on the Sea Breeze shawl, where you're picking up just 1 bar using a smaller needle size. Oops. So it's all the same skill. So you guys, that's why I say, if you want to learn how to pick up stitches, if you want to learn how to make gloves, do the 3-2-1 rule. Take no more than 2 new skills. Do 3 projects in a row where you're actually working on that skill. And it might be a shawl is project number 1. Project number 2 might be another shawl, or maybe a pillow cover, or maybe a set of gloves. So you do it 3 times, and you practice every day for at least 1 hour. So if you do the 3-2-1 rule and you learn that new skill, you can commit it to memory, and you can change it up a little bit to make it work for whatever project you're working on. But basically, it's all the same skill. So that's why you guys just should reach and try and learn how to do these things. This is another thing that I wanted to show you. When I was doing my gloves, I just took a Muscle Milk box from, we had from the garage, and just traced my hand. Now I can when I'm making my gloves, I make sure that it fits. Do you see how that works? Totally cool. And so I did this when I did socks, but you can do it with gloves or anything like that. And so for your loved ones that don't live near you and you want to make projects for them, you could have them trace their hands or their feet for you, and then you'll know exactly the dimensions that you need. So let's see what else. Oh yes, we have to do the winner, right? We have to do our...
Have them vote one more time, because I don't think they ever voted on the colors.
Oh, these colors. Okay, you guys need to help me vote. So this is Dos Tiras by Malabrigo, and it's the prize for this week. And one is Papyrus, and the other is, did I say it's Diana? Oh, yes, I love these yarns. And Dos Tiras makes a lovely product. I really like this colors, especially the darker colors are my favorite. So you vote on which one do you think that we should give out, and we can give that out for next week's prize. Now for this week, we had a winner for these lovely Malabrigo needles.
Needles.
Oh, sorry, Chowgu needles. And I'm looking for, oh, Susan Jones. Susan Jones, you won some needles. Yay. You can never have enough Chowgu needles in red lace. These are great needles. I think I have converted almost all of my needles are now Chowgu red lace, right, Jim? I have them everywhere. And so all you have to do, Susan, is give us your address, and maybe we can get this out in the mail to you. And you do that by contacting customer service at Alpaca Direct, and you can give these a try. You may have used them before. If not, they're totally fabulous. And then, like I said, this next week we are going to be working on this knit along, and it can be found on our blog, and it's called the Odyssey Shawl. And it takes 3 skeins of Dos Tiras, and so we will be working on that. And I'll be talking about gauge, and maybe we can go through it together and maybe count stitches and make sure you guys are comfortable with that. Jim, the only thing I never talked about is we had a customer that was talking about the difference between the classic style of knitting, or the picking. Continental, yes. So we're talking, I wanted to show them real quick that. And I did this little tiny sample, and then I almost ran out of yarn, so I had to back up a little bit. But I wanted to spend just a second and show you.
What are you showing here?
We had a customer that wanted to know how you might convert from the classic or the throwing method of knitting.
English, right?
Yes, English. So one's called throwing and one's called picking, or continental. Anyways, so when I have beginning students, I always teach them the classic, unless they're crocheters. Sometimes crocheters do really well with continental style of knitting. So I just have them place their needles into the stitch. And if you're a classic style of knitter, you would wrap your working yarn counterclockwise around your working needle, which is always your right hand needle, and then you would come out from underneath there and pull it off, right? So, and you notice that the working yarn is held in my right hand when I'm doing that classic style of knitting. So let's look at that one more time. We're going to insert the needle into the stitch. We're going to wrap counterclockwise around the working needle, which is your right hand needle, and then we take that stitch off. Now, when you do the continental style of knitting, your working yarn is held in your left hand. So it's held like this. What I like about the continental style of knitting is I don't do a whole lot of moving when I'm knitting. What I do is I insert that needle and I just come up over that working yarn and snag it and bring it back to me. So I go into the stitch and snag that stitch and bring it right back to me. So when you're doing the continental style of knitting, you can knit somewhat faster because you're not, it's kind of like one less step. And let me just show you one more time before I run out of yarn here. So you insert that stitch, and then I have to wrap it counterclockwise, and then I can complete the stitch. And some people are faster at one, and some people are faster at the other. But the question for today was, for those of us who maybe have a little bit of arthritis or have pains in their hands, will the continental style of knitting help you? So I wanted to show you that because maybe it would and maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. You would have to try it and see. Sometimes when you're having like carpal tunnel problems or arthritis, you might have to take a break. And in those instances, for those of you who crochet as well as knit, sometimes if you're having pain when you're knitting, try to crochet for a while. Because I have found for those people that have some pain, sometimes crocheting will not hurt them. While the knitting is bothering them. So you guys have to experiment and see what will work for you. But basically the difference between the classic style of knitting is that you hold the yarn in your right hand. And with the continental style of knitting, you hold the working yarn in your left hand. Other than that, they are very similar to each other. And there are slight variations in the way people like to hold their yarns. And there's probably every single person holds their yarn a little bit different. And I don't think there's any right way. What I think is what feels comfortable to you is what you should do. So I hope that helped you with that little question that we had for our knitters that might be having arthritis or pain in their arms from carpal tunnel or something like that. Maybe that'll help. Right? Yes, that was in the VIP group. So for all of you out there, if you are not familiar with the VIP group is a free group. And how do you sign up for that, Jim?
You just ask to join it. It's in the Facebook page.
It's on the Facebook page for Alpaca Direct, right?
Yep.
Yes. And oh my goodness, if you want to see some talent, oh my gosh, there are some talented knitters and quite lovely personalities. I really enjoy the ladies that are there. So if you guys are at home and you need to feel connected to other knitters that are enjoying themselves like you are, or maybe you're a crocheter, because we have several crocheters too. And I myself am a crocheter and like to crochet too. So you guys take a look at that and you can sign up and it's free to you. And you might learn a thing or two because we have some very crafty women. So that's awesome. So for today, we took a look at how to pick up stitches and how picking up stitches is very similar in all these different methods where we're picking up stitches along edges of shawls or we're picking up stitches in between our fingers, and it's all basically the same technique. And so practice, practice, practice. That's how you learn how to do it. Also, I would say there are a lot of people out there that are newer knitters. Make sure you find a mentor. You can use our videos, our YouTube videos. One thing I would caution newer knitters, sometimes they get gung-ho and they start doing stuff and you're like, that's great, but if you're going to practice, make sure that you're doing the basic things right. Like you want to have a knit stitch not be a twisted knit stitch, to be a regular knit stitch. So look at those YouTube videos that we have online or join the VIP group, and if something doesn't look right, ask questions because we can help you and make sure to keep you on track as you're going along so that you're learning good habits and not habits that you might have a hard time getting rid of later when you need to. So this next week, we're going to be talking more about this beautiful shawl. And I hope you guys have a great week. Stay safe, take care of yourself, and I will see you next Tuesday.